we're also, maybe in a different way, going to be treated to a fantastic Sugar Bowl, I believe, as the other side of the bracket heads up. Look, Washington doesn't have any concerns, guys. They're just going to win this one going away. No, just kidding. Washington versus Texas in the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Sorry, again, I know you
No, it's all
had
good.
to wait on me to finish the notes
That's a
for this
oopsie
one,
in
so
the
it's really
graphics
my fault.
department. They're don't worry, guys. There's plenty of concerns in the Washington camp.
It's really
Found the
my
perfect
fault
team.
because I didn't finish the notes in a timely manner. But the All-State Sugar Bowl, number 3 Washington, number 3 Texas, number 2 Washington in New Orleans, New Year's night, 7:45 p.m. on ESPN. Texas all the way up to a 4-point favorite in this game. I believe it opened at about 2.5. Over under at 63.5 in this one. So a lot of points expected down in NOLA. This, of course, is a rematch of last year's Alamo Bowl where Washington won 27-20 in San Antonio. And guys, this one I'm expecting a lot of points. I just want to take it in. This is a fantastic meeting of offensive minds, right? Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, two of the best offensive minds in the game right now, going head to head. They both have, interesting defenses as well. But for me, Texas has the biggest edge in Steve Sarkisian's ability to game plan over and over and over. You see that he can exploit a defense's weakness or weaknesses and just really use that to his advantage. We saw that against Oklahoma State. We saw that in plain sight on Black Friday against Texas Tech. He can do it to the best of them, right? We saw it against Alabama in Tuscaloosa week 2. So Steve Sarkisian just, taking a step back and thinking about his redemption arc. Garrett, I know we were talking before the show and just how much we should appreciate that redemption arc.
Yeah, no, it's kind of incredible to see what he's been able to do to, kind of create this resurgence in his career. I know one of the funny things is, a lot of the critiques of him before he came to Texas was that he had never had a very good season at any of his previous stops. And well, that could go out the window officially because this was a heck of a year for Texas. Texas is officially back, put it on the map. They're all the way back there, all the way here. They're competing for a championship. So for me, when I look at this, I think, what he's able to do offensively, what he's been able to learn and work on through his career. I know there was some speculation. Well, is he going to do well after he leaves Alabama with all that talent? The answer is yes. Like there's certainly talent on that Texas roster, but I think he has created more success than just the talent at Texas has created by out-talenting the other teams on the field. He's done a really good job putting people in a position to win, scheming up plays. As a fan of a team who doesn't necessarily like the Longhorns, it's a lot of fun to watch them play football and offense. And just, you see a play design, you see someone spring open and they, easy pass, there's plenty of green in front of them. And you're like, wow, that was pretty. That was really cool. And so, just as a football appreciator, I love watching what Steve Sarkisian can put up. And I think he's going to have plenty of success against this Washington defense.
Well, Mitch, as we look at maybe concerns for the Longhorns, there's certainly talent across the board on this roster. One of the most talented teams in the country, by far the most talented team that Washington will have faced this year. But there is one big glaring concern for the Longhorns in this matchup.
Yeah, it's pass defense, right? If you're gonna get to the horns this year, it's through the air. And a little teaser for our interview with Sam Kahn Jr., senior writer at the Athletic, the Techspert. That'll be Sunday morning. That should be coming out, previewing the Sugar Bowl. We really go in depth on this matchup, so stay tuned for that. Sam's key, if you're going to beat the Longhorns, is you throw it down the middle, right? You attack the safeties, you attack the nickel, and you make those corners make plays one-on-one in man coverage. Washington's literally the best team in the country at doing that, right? With Odunze, with Polk, with McMillan, and Penix slinging it from the quarterback spot. So if Texas is going to lose this game, I think it's going to be because they can't stop the deep ball. They can't stop the offensive creativity from Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer. That, without a doubt, is what the Longhorns have to be ready for. And I think Pete Kwiatkowski, he's got the ace in the hole when it comes to alleviating that pressure, and that's pass rush. That's the front four, right? Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy Jr., two of the best defensive tackles in the entire country. Texas has to get pressure on Michael Penix Jr., get him off his spot. Otherwise, it could be, I think this game's going to be a track meet anyway, but otherwise it could be extra long for the Longhorns.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's a huge edge for Washington. Flipping over to the other side of the field, though, dare I say the Washington defense might present an interesting edge in this one as well, because they've been much maligned this year. I know the numbers do not back up this take when you look at just total yardage, total scoring, all that good stuff. But they're very opportunistic. We saw that in the Oregon game. At the beginning, they played fantastic complimentary football in the Pac-12 championship game. The offense raced down the field, scored a couple touchdowns. The defense got huge stops when they needed to, forced a couple of turnovers. They've gotten 16 interceptions this year. Tied for, I think, fifth most in the country, ironically tied with the Longhorns. So it's going to be fascinating to see if they can keep that up. But this is also that matchup with the secondary. When we've seen Texas struggle over the past couple of years, it's been when the turnover bug bites them, right? That was their one loss this year to Oklahoma in Red River. Quinn Ewers had 2 interceptions, and he's cleaned that up quite a bit. He's done a great job cleaning that up down the stretch. But against an opportunistic defense like Washington, 1 or 2 bad decisions could flip the game in the Huskies' favor. And, of course, the biggest concern for Washington is they're playing by far the best defense they've played this season, right? The most talented defense. Oregon has a fantastic defense. They faced off against a couple plucky ones, Washington State, Oregon State, but this front seven at Texas is built different, guys, and they're deeper, they're more talented, and it's not going to be like anything Washington has tried to compete with this season. So that's my biggest concern for the Huskies as we get into this game. Mitch, I know you've kind of highlighted it right now, but do you have any other big keys for victory for either of these teams?
I think both teams need to have a balanced offense in this game, and that's an issue for Washington because they have one of the fewest rushing attempts in the country. Now, Dylan Johnson can run when they give him the ball. That offensive line won the Joe Moore Award this year, like literally the best offensive line in the country. They just haven't committed to the ground game. That's going to be a real issue in the Sugar Bowl if Texas can just pin their ears back and go after the passer. They don't have elite edge rushers right now. Talk to me next season, and they're loading up on it. But right now, this is a Longhorns team that wins through pure physicality at the line of scrimmage, up the middle, winning that in the trenches, rather than just getting to the passer on the speed rush. Washington has to balance that offensive attack out in order to keep Texas on their heels. For Texas, you said it best. Keep the ball in your possession. Do not turn it over. Don't give Washington extra possessions. If you do, I think the math starts to go in the Huskies' favor pretty quickly.
Yeah, and again, I'm expecting an all-timer in this one. I'm expecting lots of points to be scored. I would take the over, really similar to that Georgia-Ohio State game. Maybe not how it completely plays out, but really similar to that Georgia-Ohio State and maybe even Michigan-TCU last year where we just had a point bonanza breakout. So, guys, we want to get into predictions. Anything else we want to add before we get into predictions? Or if not, Garrett, we'll start with your prediction, man.
Yeah, I'm really struggling going back and forth, but I think you make a good point, and this was kind of my take for this game is I think this will be, when we're done with it, I think this will be the best playoff game we've seen so far. I think this will be better than that Rose Bowl game with the Oklahoma and Georgia going back and forth. I think it'll be better than that. I think this will be by far the best game we've seen. You got two, dynamic quarterbacks going at it. You'll have, two run games that are maybe a little bit hindered, but can run the football. A couple of good defenses. And for me, when I look at this, I look at who plays what and what the defense specifically does to play against the offensive advantages. Texas is really, really good at stopping the run, but Washington doesn't really rely on the run game when they play football. So I'm not worried about them not running the ball and still finding success. I'm a little bit worried about Texas if they turn the ball over. right? If they can continue to be consistent and continue to do what they've done more recently against some bad teams, right? No, I don't think Oklahoma State or Texas Tech would qualify as elite competition, but if they can continue to throw the football like that, no problem. But if they go back to the kind of turnover bug, the inconsistencies of kind of the earlier parts of the season, or I guess kind of that middle part when Quinn was coming back from injury and everything, it could be a concern for me. For me, I think both teams are going to play really, really well. I think it's going to be a shootout back and forth. At the end of the day, for me, Washington is clutch. Washington has shown that they will win the clutch game time and time again. Even when they put a bad performance out there, even when the other team figures out their weaknesses, even when the other team seems to know exactly how to beat them, there's just that one drive at the end. There's just that one little thing, that one key play. They get in the other team's head somehow, and they force Oregon to go for it on multiple fourth downs and somehow stop them. They pull the reverse against Washington State. They do what they do. This is what Washington is. They're just a clutch team. So if you're asking me who's going to win this game, you give me 30 seconds and Michael Penix, I think I'm good with that. So I'm going to take Washington to win this one. Walk-off field goal. You could see both scores in the 50s type of thing. 52-51 could be the final score. But I think it's a walk-off field goal for Washington to win this one and go on to the championship game.
Gosh, I hope so. I hope we get that classic.
Yeah, it's going to be – I really do think we will. I think we're going to get a fantastic one. Mitch, what are you thinking prediction-wise?
Well, similarly to I guess it's the other side of the coin. I want to be late to the party betting against Nick Saban. And listen, I have a couple times this year said this is the one. Washington has been awesome, but this is the one where Oregon finally gets them, where Oregon State gets them at home. And I've been wrong every single time. And tip of the cap to the Huskies. I was a big fan of Penix Jr. and Odunze coming into the season. I thought Odunze really had a great chance to win the Blitnikoff Award. I don't think he got enough credit for what he did up in Washington this season. But I'm going to be late to this party one more time. I think Texas is the more complete team on both sides of the football, including in the trenches. Offensive line edge goes to Washington, but the defensive line edge goes to Texas. And I think if the Longhorns can disrupt what Washington does so well, which is get the quick passes out and then take their shots deep, if they can disrupt that timing and not allow Penix Jr. to find his weapons down the field, I think Texas has more ways to score consistently than the deep ball, than only going through the air. It's a big test, don't get me wrong, and I think we're all aligned that this is going to be an absolute classic. This is going to should be one that we remember for a long time. But ultimately, I think in my gut, I've got the Longhorns winning a thriller.
I'm right there with you. I'm picking Texas, but with the caveat that they have to keep their foot on the gas, right? Sarkisian was much maligned for his catchphrase when he took over, all gas, no brakes. But, that's been their bugaboo this year. That's what's almost gotten them, is taking their foot off the gas. They've raced out to hot starts time and time again, just taking their foot off the gas. If they do that against Washington, they will lose this game because Washington will take advantage of it. And almost all of Washington's big games this year have come down to one or two plays. They find a way to make those plays. The Huskies do. Time and time again. Texas, at times this year, they found a way to win, but those big pivotal plays have typically not gone the Longhorns' favor this year. Again, I'm picking them to win. I think their talent level up and down the roster wins out in this game. I think it's a thriller. Taking Washington to cover, I think it's also a walk-off field goal type situation, last possession score type situation, but they have to execute at all points in this game. If they don't, Washington and Michael Penix will 100% take advantage.
Gracious, how about that?